Are you thinking about moving to Walsh Ranch in Aledo, Texas, and you're just not sure it's all it's cracked up to be? Do you want to know the good and the bad before moving your family to a new area, maybe even across the country? Well, if so, stick around because I'm going to cover the top 4 pros and cons of Walsh Ranch, and we're going to get started with the negatives first. Now, if this is your first time on the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living in Aledo, Texas, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap the bell for notifications to make sure you're the first to know about what's going on in the Aledo area. My name's Jared with Living in Aledo, Texas, and I get calls and texts all the time from people just like yourself who are thinking about making their move to the Aledo area, and I love it. So whether you're thinking about moving next week or next year, all my contact information is in the description box below. Reach out however you are most comfortable, and I'm looking forward to helping you make a smooth move to the Aledo area. Now, before we dive in, I do want to point out that this is not an all-encompassing video on Walsh Ranch. I do have a couple of those videos. I have, everything you need to know about Walsh. I have kind of exploring Walsh. I have other videos that kind of cover a lot more detail and go more in depth. If you're interested, go check those out. But without further delay, let's jump into the top 4 negatives about living in Walsh Ranch. Now, con number 1 is going to be the relatively small lot size of the homes in Walsh Ranch. Now, unfortunately, it's just not much you can do about it. This is a large neighborhood that the developers really kind of maximized the space. Now, you do have a lot of green space in Walsh, but that is partly because they're able to pack a lot of homes together. So my wife grew up on a home on an acre. We live on a home on an acre. And the way she describes it is that she prefers a little bit of elbow room between neighbors. So that's not something you're gonna get in Walsh. It is gonna be pretty tight, and you might feel a little bit squeezed in. The builders and the developers have typically tried to make sure that if you're in your house, you're not gonna be like at the kitchen sink looking out the window into the eyeballs of your neighbor looking out their kitchen sink. So they do a pretty good job of lining up the floor plans and the layouts, and they might flip a floor plan because of the way the neighbor's home is gonna be set up. So most of the time, you're not gonna be like real packed in a weird way where you kind of like see your neighbor too much. Okay, con number 2, and this is the one that most people think about, and it's going to be the HOA fees. The HOA fees in Walsh are gonna be higher than most other HOA neighborhoods in the Aledo area. So my HOA, I'm in an older neighborhood, we really don't have any amenities, right? Our HOA just covers like the maintaining the front entrance. My HOA is $250 a year. The HOA fees in Walsh, this is gonna be one of the pros, there's a lot of stuff that comes with it, but the HOA fees in Walsh are gonna range from like $1,500 to $2,300 a year. So you're looking at, at least $140, $150 a month. Like I said, we're gonna touch on the pros in a minute, but I do wanna give you one caveat to this con being the high HOA fees, is that fiber internet is included. So I actually looked at what AT&T is charging for their 1 gig fiber internet speeds today, and they're charging $80 a month, and that's their introductory rate for the Fort Worth area. So, I mean, honestly, 99.9% of all people are gonna need internet in their home. So if you were gonna pay for a gig, that's $80 a month. You could just take off your HOA and kind of pretend like your HOA was $80 a month less. Not everyone needs a gig. So even if you were gonna pay for only like 300 megabytes, a third of a gig speed, which would still be plenty for most people, that's still like $55 a month, 55 bucks. So that's like $600 a year in internet cost that is rolled into your HOA. So it's not as crazy as it seems up front, but you do have to pay that HOA no matter what, even if you don't want the full gig internet speed and some of the other amenities you'll be using. So higher than average HOA fees is gonna be con number 2. Okay, this one really is a pro and a con, so I'm gonna touch on this in the pro section as well. But con number 3 is the distance from Fort Worth. Now, if you're going down 30, it's only gonna be about 20 minutes. The problem arises when maybe you prefer not to drive on the highway, which I do have clients that do not like highway driving, or if there's an accident and you need to avoid the highway. If you are not gonna drive on the highway, you are looking at 30 to 45 minutes to get to downtown Fort Worth. And if you're used to living right next to a major employer, you're used to living in town. I have clients right now, they're buying in Aledo, And his biggest issue with buying a home in Walsh Ranch was the added drive time, because he currently lives inside the loop in Fort Worth, and he works 12 minutes from his house. Now he's gonna be 25 minutes from his office because he's gonna be out in Walsh. So distance from Fort Worth and the major employers is going to be con number 3, because if for any reason you cannot go down Interstate 30, you're not looking at 20 minutes, you're looking at 30 to 45 minutes. Okay, con number 4 might be the biggest and the least understood negative of living in Walsh Ranch. And that's gonna be the PID, or the higher than average property taxes. So PID, P-I-D, stands for a Public Improvement District. So this area was not incorporated by a city originally. So the developers of Walsh Ranch coordinated with the city of Fort Worth to bring in utilities. Well, they didn't do that for free. So every single lot has a predetermined dollar amount that they owe to pay back the city for those utilities they brought in. That's the Public Improvement District, and that's the Walsh Ranch PID. And the value or the cost associated with each lot varies based on the lot size. You have townhome lots, you have 35-foot lots, 45-foot lots, 55-foot, 65-foot, 70+ width. These are lot width sizes. That's typically how they determine these, not by the exact square footage of the lot. But basically that's an add-on to the taxes in Walsh Ranch, because a lot of clients, they've heard about this, and what they ask is, what is the property tax rate in Walsh Ranch? Well, your property taxes are set fairly standard, and the PID doesn't really show on the property tax rate, but it is something that is due like a tax. The one difference is, once it's fully paid off, it goes away. So what is this fee? Now it's gonna vary, like I said, on the lot size, but my most recent clients that are currently under contract to buy a home in Walsh, they're buying a home on a lot width of 55 feet. So the 55-foot lot width cost for the PID turns into about $98 per month for 30 years. It's not huge, but it's not nothing, right? And it's a certain dollar amount, but then it's financed, it's amortized like a loan over the course of 30 years. So that first year, you're really only paying like $100 or $150 for the whole year towards that principal, and like $800 or something that's interest. So if you want, you can actually pay the principal balance in full upfront or at any time. And so what is the savings? Why would you choose to do that? Well, for my client specifically, their lot value on that PID, so they were gonna have to pay $15,500 over the course of 30 years in principal. But if they didn't pay that up front, there was gonna be like $20,000 in interest. So they can pay $35,000 over the course of 30 years, or they could pay $15,000 up front, pay it all off, and no one who ever owns this home will ever pay into that PID again. So that's a good benefit, but he's gonna come out $15,000 out of pocket up front. But if you do sell your home in the future and the PID is still there, it doesn't transfer with the owner. It sticks with that lot, and that has to be accepted and assumed by the future borrower. So most people think about this as being part of their property taxes. It can be escrowed with your property taxes. It's not technically property tax, but you can essentially lump it in, and that does make your property tax higher in Walsh Ranch over most other neighborhoods in the Aledo area, but it is not a permanent forever thing, but something important to know about. Now, if you're still with me and none of those negatives and none of those cons were 100% deal killers for you, then Walsh Ranch might be a great option, and we're gonna jump into those top 4 benefits. Now, one thing I wanna note is that these are not in any particular order, because without a couple of these things working together, Walsh Ranch would not be what it is today. So let's hop into the top 4 benefits of living in Walsh Ranch. Okay, now if you do any sort of research or any more videos, one of the first things you're gonna see people talk about for Walsh Ranch is the tons of amenities. So you have a maker space, you have an athletic center, you have multiple pools. One of those is a junior Olympic pool. One of those is like a family style pool with slides and canopies and shallow areas for little kids. You got basketball courts, tennis courts, you've got multiple ponds. One is set up with like a beach setup where you can swim, you can, catch and release with fish. There's miles and miles of walking trails, there's tons of green space. Oh, and parks. How could I forget all the parks? There's tons of parks. So this is a master planned community. and it shows. Now, pro number 2 is the schools, because you can have a great, awesome neighborhood with tons of amenities, but without decent schools, there's gonna be kind of a lack of desire there. And Aledo isn't just decent. Aledo is one of the top rated school districts in Texas. And not only are you in Aledo ISD in general, you have your own elementary school, Walsh Elementary, inside the neighborhood. So that makes it super easy to walk your kids to school, drop them off, pick them up. And again, that is inside the neighborhood and services pretty much just the Walsh Ranch neighborhood, which means there's tons and tons of families and even more kids, right? And now a second huge benefit when it relates to the schools is that McAnally Middle School is literally, I measured it with like Google Maps measuring, literally like 1,000 feet from the back entrance or exit of Walsh Ranch off Purple Thistle. 1,000 feet down the road is the entrance to McAnally Middle School. So not only do you have an elementary school in the neighborhood, you have a middle school directly outside of the neighborhood. And then for the high school, Aledo High School, that is gonna be just north of downtown, right next to Parks of Aledo. So you are gonna have to drive or they'll bus to that one. But the schools are a huge, huge benefit of not only the Aledo area, but specifically for Walsh with the proximity of those two very good schools, right there for you and your family. All right, now you could have a ton of great amenities. You could have really good schools, but if you don't have anywhere to employ the people who wanna move into your neighborhood will not be a desirable place to live. So pro number 3, which I mentioned in the cons earlier, is the proximity to Fort Worth. Downtown Fort Worth is a short 20-minute drive down Interstate 30. It's super easy, it's just straight down the road, and it's awesome. And now for a lot of people, we did talk about the negative of that is that you do have to go down 30 for that quick drive. A ton of people work from home nowadays. So you do have the pros of the amenities, you do have that high-speed internet. So if you're working from home, you're not gonna have any issues with your internet speeds, doing your Zoom meetings, anything like that. The distance and the proximity to Fort Worth is a major, major pro that helps really tie in the good schools and all the amenities to make Walsh Ranch one of the most desirable neighborhoods. If you look at all the suburbs for Fort Worth, it's probably gonna be the top or one of the top 2 or 3 neighborhoods for those who work in the Fort Worth area. Okay, now pro number 4 is gonna be all the choices when it comes to housing. You have all sorts of price ranges and all sorts of housing types. Whether you're looking at about a $400,000 home, you have choices, or you're looking at $1 million plus homes, you have options that are gonna fit any of your needs. So not only price ranges, but you have construction types. So you have townhomes, garden homes, cottage homes, and then you also have, primarily you have the traditional single family homes as well. Then it gets even more in depth because there are still new construction homes. They are still building out Walsh Ranch. They're gonna be building it out honestly for years, which maybe is kind of a con, but it's a pro today because you can choose new construction homes. You can pick your lot, build from the ground up. You can make all your own choices. You're gonna pay a premium for that. I am gonna have a video that you should watch before buying new construction in the Aledo area. That'll come out shortly. But ground up construction, you're gonna pay premium to pick out all your own selections, or you can buy a completed spec home. I have a client who is getting an amazing deal on a spec home because it really wasn't a spec home. It was a custom built home by someone else who terminated the day before closing. This person picked out all the upgrades, they decked it out. I mean, central vac, upgraded courts, high-end floors, added all the, extended patios, added the media room, the standalone tubs. The home is absolutely gorgeous. And they walked away from over $30,000 of deposits they'd put down. And now the builder has a home that was kind of spec'd out for someone else that they want to get rid of. So they dropped the price on this home. They dropped it and they dropped it and they dropped it. And thankfully we were interested, we were talking with them and we were considering it at the price they had and they dropped it 25 grand, right? So we were able to snag that right away and get a smoking deal on a home that was fully upgraded because we were willing to buy a home that was already completed. So separate from new construction, obviously there's tons of pre-owned homes. So that's gonna be a home that someone else built or bought from the builder, has been lived in for a few years, and then typically you're not gonna pay as much for these homes as you do new construction. Now, there was a short period of time during COVID where that dynamic got reversed, and it was just because it was a housing shortage. But you're still gonna have lots of different choicing types, and you're typically not gonna pay that same premium for new construction. And then in today's market, when inventory is on the rise and homes are not moving as quickly, you can negotiate some pretty good terms with these homeowners and maybe get some strong price reductions, maybe get some concessions, maybe get some terms that are beneficial to you. So pro number 4 is just all the choices, selections, price ranges, housing type, architectural styles that you can choose from in Walsh. So just tons of choices. Regardless of what your style is that you like, you're probably gonna find something that you're gonna like a lot in the Walsh area. Well, that's a wrap for the top 4 pros and cons of living in Walsh Ranch. If you have any questions that I did not answer, make sure you put those in the comments. And remember, whether you're looking to move next week or next year, all my contact information is in the description box below. And I look forward to helping you make a smooth move to the Aledo area.